Hello, and welcome back. On a previous episode, I built this Jubilee clone into an Old Trainer Voice Master chassis. And, well, it was a fail at first because, well, there's a lot going on here. This is not a beginner's circuit, and things are bound to slip up, especially when you're trying to work around someone else's layout and make it fit into your situation here. Now, I've since gone through this whole thing with a fine-tooth comb, both the layout, both the amp itself, and both my map. And I did find some errors. Looking at the map, this 100K resistor was connected here when it was supposed to be connected here. That's been corrected. I had a couple wires crossed. I think it was over here somewhere where I was, connecting what was supposed to go to the grid to the tube to the effects send, and what was supposed to go to the effects send to the grid of the tube. And then over here, this is completely wrong. That's a mistake I also made in my layout. You see, this 1 meg in the original layout goes on the other side of this resistor to connect directly to the grid of the tube. That's the grid leak. The input, the grid of a preamp tube or any tube is not going to work at all without that ground shunt. So that was a bit of we got all the wires put back where they're supposed to be. I got the grid leak resistor here connected to the grid. Everything in the preamp's good to go now. I have not found any other errors. Now, there are certain things suspect because this amp still does kind of sound funny. And part of the deficit I'm up against here is I've never heard a real Jubilee before. I don't know what this is supposed to sound like, or if this is just a product of my tomfoolery. Now, there's a few other corrections that I can make. For example, in the original Marshall schematic, after the choke, the first drop resistor to accommodate the preamp is 10K. Now, because this transformer set runs at slightly lower voltage, I use this 2.7K to kind of compensate and get more voltage over to the preamp. But it turns out that the voltage I'm getting out of this, is about 450 volts, is not too far off from the 460 that these Marshall amps run at. So that's way overcompensating. I'm going to go ahead and bring that up to a 10K. Talking about 10Ks, I'm going to use the last couple of ones that I have left, because over here on the phase inverter, I'm running an 8.2K. I forget where I got that spec from, but we'll change that out to a 10K because that could affect the high end a little bit. And also on the phase inverter is the presence circuit. Now, right now I have a 10K with this 4.7K shunt here to ground. Now, the Marshall schematic has something similar going here. And according to my research, that's because they're using a 22K pot, but they're not supposed to. That's too high. So by putting that 47K in here, it brings the impedance of that pot down to about 5K where it should be, or actually 4K. It wouldn't make sense for it to be higher. Now, if you look at Seratone, they just straight up use a 5K with no resistor trickery. Why would Marshall use a 25K? It means it's one less component they need to stock. The 22-25K is commonly used in the mid position of a tone stack, so they're gonna have to stock a bunch of those anyway. The pot that I have is a 10K, so that 4.7K isn't appropriate. It's going to be bringing that down to, 3.19K. Yeah, that's not quite correct. We need to add another 10K there, and then that'll bring it down to the 5K value that is commonly being used. To make matters worse, hiding underneath this behemoth of a 0.68U capacitor bypassing, I think that's the first gain stage's cathode, is a 2.2K resistor. Schematic called for a 2.7K, and at first I couldn't find one, but if you watch the last episode and were paying attention, yeah, I pulled some 2.7Ks out of this circuit when I modified the phase inverter and completely forgot about it. So I'm going to go ahead and put those in there. And then, yeah, that should do it. So once that's done, this thing should be completely as per spec. And then let's hear what it sounds like. See if it solves some of my tone woes. All right, let's have at her. Ooh, can we get in there? A lot going on in this one little section. We're gonna start with this guy. Bring down those preamp voltages. We're gonna have to shape this guy funny to match. Oh, she's a little funky looking. Things will be easier if we clear out these holes. All right, Wire, resistor, solder. That sure wire's trying to get away. Get in there. All right, what's next? We'll move down the line. We'll nip this presence in the butt. How easy you figure this is gonna come out? When you do too good of a job installing it, you have a hard time uninstalling it. All right, get that guy out of there. I gotta change the wiring around just a little bit. Shouldn't affect how it works though. I'm gonna be taking a tip out of this basement presence control. Okay, almost there. Hey, here's the 10K going in. If we can. Slippery. Need to very quickly tack that into place. Having a hard time holding it at this angle, but this is where we risk damaging a pot. Just want that to stay there. Okay, get the wire in the hole. Actually, let's not get the wire in the hole. Let's be difficult. This hole's not big enough. All right. Now let's solidify that bottom connection there. Oh, it looks ugly. I don't like it. It didn't flow on the bottom of that pot nice. We have to quit while we're ahead with pots because you'll just burn them out if you try overheating them. And over here in the phase inverter, it'll institute another 10K. Even though I really don't know if I see a difference between 10K and 8.2 for something like this. All right, let's see what we can do here. Okay, apparently nothing. Looks like we're gonna have to get in there with our fingers. All right, let's just freshen this up. Okay, 10K in place. What else did I want to change here? Oh yeah, the 2.7K all the way over here. Pull this out carefully now. And we'll just pull all the wires out and completely redo it. Come on now. You know, nitpicking on some of these values, I don't think it's gonna miracle change the tone. But you know, we just kind of want to start off exactly where they intended us to be. All right, where is the 2.7K? And right here, what the towel? Get it in the hole. Get this wire back in the hole. Get this wire back in the hole. Let's get the capacitor back in the hole. Oh, she's hold tight. Come on. All right, let's tack it down. This guy needs some fitting over here because stuff's not, it's a busy hole. Oh, there we go. Oh, gotta come in there at every different angle. All right, one last correction I want to make is this poor capacitor right here is not necessarily healthy. It's wrapped the way it is because I slipped with the soldering iron and burned a hole in the side of it. You can kind of see underneath the tape. I'm just going to replace it with the one that's in better condition here. I don't have enough 1U capacitors or 0.1U capacitors. You'll notice that I got these vintage mustard caps here. Don't see why they wouldn't work. I think that's the gist of it. Yeah. Now I've done changed on the tubes of this thing. Right now I got some Sovsec 6L6WXTs, and then I've put a pair of tongue saws in the preamp and an EH7025 in the phase inverter. It's got a bit of a softer sound, and these guys have a brighter sound. I found the sound of this amp very dark. And indeed, if you research it online, that's something that the Jubilee is known for. It's known for its darkness. But I found it like almost obnoxiously too dark. It was just like, well, what am I gonna do with this dark? And again, that could totally be my fault because I messed something up. But hey, usually in my other amps, like my Crate and my JCM 800, they have a bright tone to them. So I tend to prefer darker sounding tubes or tubes with good mid drive. One favorite preamp tube I have in both of those amps is the JJ ECC 803S. It sounds like a more polished version of the ECC 83S. It's got a darker tone and a more three-dimensional mid boost, mid drive to it. I'm actually quite fond of it. This was already a very mid-heavy amp, so I didn't find it very appropriate. Now, the Tungsol 12AX7s, I usually don't like those in the preamps of my other two amps because they're too bright and fizzy. They've got less character. They're excellent phase inverter tubes, but I don't like the distortion texture that they generate in those amps. It works better in this one with the E83cc, their new tube, coming in pretty good too, because the E83cc's got an overall more balanced tone. It's got less of that mid. and a pretty good clean sound, like clean distortion. I might prefer it over the tongue cells for this. I'm not sure yet. Now, one issue that I'm having with this amp is there's this weird, obnoxious, high-end texture, like almost a chirp. And that was shared in the last build that I did in this chassis. So I'm suspecting that there's something integral to this chassis that might be affecting the tone in that way. That's one of the reasons why I went ahead and made changes to the phase inverter circuit to see if I can diagnose that. But outside of that, the only other thing that can be affecting the tone in that way would be my output transformer. So maybe the output transformer in this thing is not appropriate for a guitar amp. This was, after all, a PA amplifier. Either way, let's see what difference we've made here. Hey, come on, we need more slack here. Come on, stop screwing around. 16 ohm power. And Yamaha quintessential start. Oh, geez, that's totally in the way. Pivot. Yes, there we go. Where's my pick? Asked that question of all. Hiding down here in the dirt. All right, so let's just flatten everything out. Volume down, gauge halfway. Contact. Oh boy, that's a huge difference in the gain. Has a very muffled tone to it. Hey, the highs opened up as I turned the, well, that's not the gain, that's the master volume, or the lead volume. Yeah, that sucked. I keep wanting to find a wiring error in the EQ circuit because I want to hollow out those mids a bit. And then of course we have channel switching, right? The relay's working, no huge poppy noises, and of course, neat-ner. Oh yeah, my indicator light works well. Now this does nothing. Of course that has influence. Basically what you do is you set your lead master to match your clean, which is pretty much parked at full. Now you might wonder, why did they do it that way? Well, unless I got the wiring wrong, if I use the rhythm clip function, the volume goes down. And it actually has a nice crunch to it. Okay, I need to set up another microphone because you're hating not hearing this properly, aren't you? So I've gone ahead and set up the Trainer 212 cap, and I got a mic on it, hopefully in a palatable position. All right, so let's go ahead and hear what this sounds like. Middle half, treble half, bass half, presence half, gain cranked, master, not master, I keep getting this wrong, boost volume. What the heck do they call it again? It's doing me a confuzzle. Lead master, and master, output master. It almost has enough gain to do harmonics. There's definitely bass response. And it turns out having the wrong taper of bass pot isn't that bad. So watch my bass response here. As you can see, the curve's actually good. I'm gonna be good with that pot, I think. The middle's weird because I feel it has like no response to it. It does do something, but it sounds subtle. And then treble, well, treble does. Now let's hear how this corrected presence sounds. It's more subtle, but it's more responsive. Before, I swear, like here it did nothing, and then it just, you know, this did something. It's hard to believe that this won't like really fill out a mix with that mid drive that it has. It's almost like the opposite of the JCM 800, whereas the JCM 800 is very bright. This one's very MIDI. It's like if you use these both on the stage together, you might have a pretty full mix. So let's try the clean, because we have interesting things going on with this knob that I keep forgetting the name of, Lead Master. Now, with the Lead Master pretty much cranked to 10, if we switch over to the clean channel, we get this effect. It's not as sparkling nice as other cleans that I've heard, but then I don't know if it's designed to be, you know, just kind of fills that need. Now, if we crank the Lead Master, it basically equates the two channels together. Now where things get tricky is when I turn on the rhythm clip. It seems to drop the output volume. So that is where you have to start compensating by turning the master down. Now the rhythm channel with the rhythm clipping turned on actually has some pretty good crunch. Or wait, I'm on the main channel. Hold on here. False advertising. And it's funny because the rhythm channel with clipping turned on reminds me of what the 800 sounds like. This is how much the gain the 800 has before you plug an overdrive into it. Probably more, actually. So that's actually kind of a nice option. You can go from crunch to boost if you really wanted to. It'd be nice to have a foot switch to illustrate this, but I need a different jack. Now, I don't immediately sound like Guns N' Roses, but what I am hearing is not bad. Actually, last night I had a bit of fun playing with this amp. I was quite enjoying what I was getting out of it. Now there is one other facet in which we need to explore, and that is overdrive, because any tube amp of this era, it was probably being ran with overdrive. Once again, I'm going to be using my DoD Malmsteen pedal. We'll turn the gain down to halfway, level up. Because this thing has way more gain than the 800, I think we need to be a bit more conservative with how we dial in the overdrive. Dude, where's my harmonic? One thing I found interesting about this amp is because in rhythm mode, it sounds like the 800. If we switch our channel over, turn on rhythm clip, dial in the overdrive the same way I would on the 800. So yeah, we can overdrive the snot out of the rhythm channel and get quite possibly a more clean distortion. It's almost like if you were using this amp with overdrive, you might want to use it exclusively in the rhythm channel and just use the boost channel for literally a boost. You kick it on for like a solo or something, and you leverage the use of the separate volume to control, you know, your boost over top, allow the solo to cut. So that's quite interesting. And they say this amp's versatile. Yeah, there's some interesting things we can do with this. Bring it back to the normal channel. I'm sure you're getting sick of hearing me just noodle like this. I want to pull the ears out because I can't actually hear what this thing sounds like. Holy crap, chirpy treble or what? It sounds like complete ass with the ears out. At least with the overdrive. That's enough of the overdrive. Sonically, there's some weird stuff going on here to my actual ears. And it makes me wonder, it gives me more ideas. Yeah, there's definitely a high-end chirp in there. I gotta figure out what that is. I suspect a few things. Let's try that triode mode. That guy was getting some power tube distortion there. Definitely, as you turn it up, it starts to get brighter, and I think that's the point. A lot of amps can do that, you know. Once it starts getting wound up, those highs really start to cut through. I guess they wouldn't have added a pentode triode switch if they didn't intend for this thing to be brought up a bit. lows are tight. I started bringing up the bass and I get this roar. Oh boy. Now, do we want to risk my ears and see just how loud this thing's gonna go? Yeah, you get a little bit more harmonic response as you turn it up. At about 5 though, it starts getting, you know, it really starts falling apart. You start losing the edge that I like in some amps. So, I could see this amp benefiting from more power. How about the triode mode? That's interesting. Triode mode, it kept tight at 5, and it stayed tight as I brought it up, and I got more harmonic content. My harmonics were better. And realistically, it was quite a bit loud enough for anything I'm gonna do with it. Triode mode sounds like ass at low volumes, but maybe it sounds good at higher volumes. Talking about lower volumes, just how low can we go with this thing? Not that I can hear correctly anymore. Bedroom volume levels. You know, I could see myself enjoying this at bedroom volume levels, even without an overdrive. Like, okay, the harmonics aren't there, but it actually, it's interesting because if you really nail your harmonics, they're still there. Something about the way this amp feels, though. I can't put my finger on it, but it feels. Like, normally, the gain level that this amp has, you know, in most high gain amps, it's not as touch sensitive. This amp has some touch sensitivity to it. And I'm liking that. I'm liking that. It makes it fun to play. And then, of course, it has some good crunch and note definition. It's like you can hear every note. And we're still at like bedroom volumes here. Well, it was a bit tricky starting off. I made a few mistakes, but I think this is ultimately a success. The overall sound of it, there's still some weirdness that I don't feel is quite right. I'm not sure how much the components I'm using will affect that, because I have a mixed bag of whatever scrap components I had kicking around. It's not like I bought virgin OEM components for this thing, but I'm almost starting to feel, because certain sonic qualities of this were shared between the last build I did in this chassis, it's a case of the output transformer. From my knowledge, I don't know how much the power transformer and the choke are going to affect the tone in this manner, like in the actual EQing, but I can definitely see the output transformer affecting that. I have other plans for this amp and other experiments that I want to do, and I should probably, like, yeah, sure, fix on this thing here. I think I should replace that with a fresh pot. Actually, I think I should get a bunch of fresh pots. Some of these are getting worn out, and I noticed these guys are a bit, I gotta get those knobs on better. At any rate, if you enjoyed this, stay tuned, because, you know, I do stuff like this sometimes. And I got other stuff planned, and I'm gonna be working more on this amp. But I hope you enjoyed this. Didn't I just say that? If you enjoyed this, stay tuned. Oh, I don't know. The outros are always the most confusing part. Oh boy. A Jubilee, eh? Now I just have to actually, like, find a real one to compare it to. Wouldn't that be novel?